What's good, beautiful people? Today I want to talk about the hidden job market. Now, a lot of you have been saying that it's been very difficult to find jobs. It's not only you, I've been saying exactly the same thing. And the reality is, it's true, it is harder to find jobs. Now, amongst all the various different reasons, it is still possible to find and secure a role. And I want to talk about this whole idea of what's known as a hidden job market. This is really where the opportunities are found straight via the recruiter or straight via the hiring manager or whatever it may be. And that's really where the real source is, because this hidden job market has really been the best way to find a job anyway. Okay. And so thinking about this stuff, you have to think to yourself, where do I find something that's hidden? Sounds a bit strange to say. Now, for me, when I think about all of the different opportunities I've got over the years when it comes to contracting, whether that's been inside or outside, this has been people coming to me. Now, it hasn't necessarily been through referrals, although I got into the game of contracting through a referral and a very good friend who basically just spilled the beans in terms of the business and explained everything to me. But predominantly what I have seen is, and I've said this again and again and again, it starts with having a good way to market your value. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily networking and all this kind of stuff there, even though I think that's important, but what does that really mean? I'm talking about your fundamental thing that defines your very competence and confidence. And that is your CV, your curriculum vitae, okay? I say this to say that that is your foundation. Whether you are networking with someone or not, that has to be followed up with a good curriculum vitae, with a good CV. It is your marketing tool. It is the way you present yourself to the world. Now, there are other things you can do, but it starts off with that. So the first thing I'd say is make sure that you have a banging CV. To me, a banging CV looks like having your name at the top with some minor information on you. So for example, your telephone number and your email and your LinkedIn link, okay, as a hyperlink. Then you have your profile, which is, let's say, 4 to 5 lines that clearly articulates what you do, some core skills, highlights and key evidence in terms of what you've done or delivered, and then what you're looking for. As a high level example, then you have key achievements or expertise, depending on what stage you're at. Then you have key skills. Then you have your relevant experience, okay? That really edifies the responsibilities that you've done and actions that you've taken aligned to a methodology that makes sense to the hiring manager. Has to always make sense. It has to align. And then you have any additional information or additional experience that doesn't need all the detail of the responsibilities. And of course, if you go back to the relevant experience, you need to make sure that that has the achievements that highlight your tangible sort of like deliverables. And then you have your education and vocational education, okay? So vocational being like a Prince 2, an Agile, an ITIL, whatever it may be. That has to be done in an ATS friendly way, widened margins, font size, I don't know, anywhere between 9 and 11, depending on what you're happy to do. No more than 3 pages, depending on your experience. Relevant experience being 10 years and below, if that's the right sort of like language or English. So you've done all of that stuff. You've got it sort of like checked and all that kind of stuff. If you can get it checked by somebody within the field, okay, or whatever it may be, then perfect. But don't do this if your CV does not align to something. I'm a perfect example of this. You may disagree, but I didn't feel like this, okay? Now, if you look at my LinkedIn, you will see I had no business being a program manager. No business. Why do I say this? You would expect that anyone being a program manager has done project support, project coordination, project manager, senior project manager, then maybe program manager. I did a whole shebang of different stuff: commissioning, implementation, workforce lead, Northwest England relationship lead, all of this random stuff, but they showed project management elements. So what did I do well? I was able to articulate that in my CV. I think, at least anyway. But of course, because I've kind of stuck to a certain area or niche, which has been the public sector, namely the NHS, that has been helpful to me. So you can see where there are some advantages that I didn't recognize that have been helpful. And so when I have got these contracts, they have been based on the fact that I'm within a specific area. Now, how does this link to the hidden job market? Well, if you're clear about who you want to become, okay, eventually at least, because you've done the PAR experience, the PAR model, problem, action, result, based on each experience, and you've highlighted that within your CV, it means that you're aligned. So when you upload your CV to some sort of job board, let's say, for example, CV library, I like that. That's where I've got a lot of my contracts. I don't know how, but I have. But I think I'm telling you how right now, okay? What that does is it triggers an alert in terms of notifying individuals that this person is the right person for this type of job. You have to remember, yeah, these recruiters don't necessarily know the ins and the outs of what your specific job role entails. So therefore, you have to provide a CV that clearly articulates this, and you need to be able to speak to that CV or your experience clearly. You have to. So it's not just about stuffing keywords. It's also about logical frameworks in terms of how you've spoken about your experience, and then having tangible things that you've actually done. Have you increased income? Have you made or saved money? Have you been able to make something more efficient as a percentage? Like, these are all things to think about. So it's about alignment. Who do I want to become? Let me look at my experience. How can I communicate this effectively? Therefore, when I put it on platforms, it makes sense when people want to sort of like reach out to me or whatever it may be. And so when you put it on these places like CV Library, you may even boost it, okay, in terms of advertising your sort of like profile. Then you're going to get people contacting you. And once you get people contacting you, that's your way in, because you can start to develop a relationship. These individuals, okay, either number one, are looking for a candidate who can specifically fulfill a role that's on CV Library, as an example, or they have a job in mind that you would suit anyway. So every time you upload your CV onto these things, it goes into their system. It goes into their system. And so this is where you start tapping into the hidden job market, because these recruiters now have you on file. They really respect what you're about. And you know it's time to tango when, again, they follow up. If you've got an updated CV, they ask you questions, or they want to have a one-to-one with you to learn more about what you're looking for. And even better, they ask you or tell you, actually, we've got a role coming up, or we're looking to land this role. Like, when you have those sorts of conversations, that's how you know. This is why you need to be ready. Do you understand? You have to be ready. And so the first thing I'd say is make sure that you have a banging CV. It's really important. The second thing I'd say is, when it comes to like your LinkedIn, you have to think like a recruiter. And I did this the other day. Yeah? I was like, how do I put myself in a position of what recruiters think like on LinkedIn specifically? Okay. And so what I did was I went onto YouTube and I typed in LinkedIn Recruiter Lite, and there's a more premium version, but I just watched the tutorials. I said, okay, this is how they're thinking. So you have to think to yourself, how can you optimize your CV, or sorry, your LinkedIn profile, so that you can get searched? I mean, think about what I just did there. I went on YouTube, a free resource, and I thought to myself, what are recruiters looking for to better optimize themselves when it comes to finding the right candidate? Let me check out LinkedIn Recruitment Lite. This is a gem. So when you look at that stuff, you'll understand that they're gonna, again, have a high level overview of your image, your header, your headline. Even the keywords within that headline is important. So it would make sense to make sure that you had the role that you do, okay? And then also maybe a specialism, but also the key sort of like qualifications and or skills that you have. So for me, it may say something like, and you can check mine out if you want, program manager, NHS, digital transformation, MSP, and change management practitioner. Boom. Is it going to be that simple? No, of course not, because I like to add a little bit of spice and all that kind of jazz. But the point being made is, it's clear. And so therefore, I'm more likely going to get recruiters come to me because it's straight to the point. So if you miss out a certain aspect to a certain thing, you may be sort of like stopping yourself from gaining a certain opportunity. Okay, so think about that stuff. Another thing that I would say is you have to think about obviously what is like highlighted when it comes to your experience as well. So are you putting in the keywords? For example, if you go to look for a job now, and I don't know if you have a premium account or not. So I have a premium account, but this may not apply if you don't. So check anyway. If you go to apply for a job, okay, and you basically click on the job, let's say you see a program manager role or a business analyst role, you'll see there is some sort of ranking. It says something like you have 3 out of 10 of the skills required for this job. Now, every single time you find a business analysis role, okay, check to see whether there are consistent skills that pop up that are required for that specific roles. And if there are, you need to add those skills to your experience, your work experience, but also to the bottom of your LinkedIn profile as well. And make sure people endorse you for that stuff. So that's a really important point. That's how you're optimizing. That's how you're making sure that you are, search ready when it comes to opportunities on LinkedIn. This is where people are coming to you, because this is what you want. Obviously, reach out to people, but you want people to come to you. So think about all of this stuff. Obviously, there are other things you can do, and I'll talk about it, but I'm just going to go through my notes so there's a bit of structure, should we say. There's also a skills assessment, okay? So what I mean by this is, if you recognize that there are certain skills that you need, let's say, for example, you are, an operations manager, but you want to become an operations director. Are you lacking certain skills, maybe in strategy or maybe in leadership or whatever it may be? Go onto LinkedIn, take these specifics sort of like courses, and then of course that pops up on your profile that you've done this stuff. Again, it's a signal to the recruiter. It's another signal. So you want to do some sort of skill gap analysis to understand what those missing skills are. There are other tools on LinkedIn that you can use, and there are other tools out there. You can also use ChatGPT to help you. You can throw your CV into ChatGPT and say, hey, what's missing in terms of skills if I was looking to progress into this area with this type of role, etc., etc. Be creative, man. There's nothing you can't do creatively right now, especially when it comes to the use of AI and agentic tools as well. So think about that stuff. You also want to make sure that you're in a position where you're learning from people. So what do I mean by this? If you are junior, if you're even in your middle career, so to speak, or even senior, don't be afraid to reach out to people. I mean, there is a certain number of people you can reach out to on LinkedIn and ask them, hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you, just centered around your experience in, directorship, program management, or business analysis. Do you have 15 to 30 minutes to spare where we can have a virtual conversation? Be brief with it. You can send them a Calendly link, a cal.com link, whatever link that you have. Send them a link so they can check your diary and all that kind of stuff there. And then you can have that conversation. Record the conversation if you can. You can use a stealth recording sort of AI tool like Otter AI. I don't know if that's a stealth one, but you can use Otter AI. Ask them if you're allowed to record the conversation, etc., etc., so you can get those insights. But here's the thing. It's not about getting the insights. It's more about asking them for referrals. Do you know anyone who'd be best suited to, again, have these jobs available or know about these jobs in a bit more details than anyone else I can talk to? So this is where the power of conversation comes into play. Reach out to people. And it doesn't have to be random people initially. It can be people within your network. You can say, John, do you know anyone who's within the program or project management space? Do you know anyone who is a digital marketing pro? Do you know anyone who is X, Y, and Z? Yes, I do know this person, but I'd have to do this, that. Okay, cool. No pressure, but I'd really appreciate it. Follow up on it. Ask as many people as possible. This is how it works. This is what I did with my friend Chima. And he introduced me to, well, he didn't introduce me. I knew his brother already. But his brother essentially introduced me into this network that enabled me to be part of this VC-backed organization that backs startups and all that kind of stuff there. If I never open my mouth, it just wouldn't have worked out. So you have to not be afraid to speak to different people. Another thing is, you have to ensure that your personal brand is on point, my friends. Okay? And what I mean by this is the basics. The basics. Why don't you have a header image? Why don't you have a profile image? Why do you have some meaty little thing on your headline? Come on, man. If your LinkedIn is saying 50% complete, there's another 50% you have to do. And even the 50% that you did, have you done it properly? Please, I don't even need to say anything. There is so much out there in terms of making sure that you have an on point thing. Make it your task by the end of this week that your LinkedIn is on point. Declare it, man. Serious. Don't be lazy about it. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a header image or anything like that. I don't have a profile image. Okay, wear something nice. Stand behind a white background, okay, or a cream background. Take a picture with your phone. You can even do a selfie initially if you want to. Get someone to take the picture for you. If you want to remove the background, then go to removebackground.bg on Google and then go onto Canva, put it onto a white background. Some people are doing yellow, blue, whatever it may be. Just keep it professional. Headshot like this, bam, done. Profile image done. What's the issue? Templates can be found on Canva. Go onto Canva. Get the templates, make it clear, like, what is the thing that you want to be known for? It could be a word, it could be an idea, but it needs to relate to what you're doing professionally, or at least portfolio career-wise. Like, I don't know how to stress it. Like this, for me, it's the basics. It is. But sometimes we need to be encouraged to do this, or sometimes we need to be told to do it. If you're doing it already, high five to you. But for those of you who aren't, please don't sleep on yourself, man, because sometimes just those little itty bitty basic stuff are fundamentally important, okay? Because when a recruiter does see you, then it's like they respect themselves. Whether that's true or not, they don't need to know that, but let them know you respect yourself, because again, they want to put the best of the best. And unfortunately, we live in a world that is very judgy. That's just how it is. So play them at their own game until you don't have to do it anymore. Some people are like, I don't want to play no games. I hear it. But you gotta eat. Now, I say this to say, not to be inauthentic or insincere, but what I am saying is, let people see the best version of yourself. Whatever that means. Give yourself a fighting chance. Sometimes it's about your brand. So I've spoken about a whole bunch of key stuff. I think I've covered a lot of things here. I guess the other thing I would say is just make sure that you do your due diligence. I think the final thing is, when you are getting sort of like recruiters come to you and stuff, track everything. Track it. Track it on a spreadsheet. Track it in your Notion database. Track it. I didn't start off doing this initially. I started doing this a bit more recently, and I've actually gone back. Like when I'm going to do something, like I'll do it in detail and robustly with depth. So go back, or as you're doing it, track who you spoke to, what you spoke about, the last email, this, that, conversation, whatever it may be, and follow up with them. Maybe you want to be in a position where you set a calendar invite every 3 months. Based on the financial year or the calendar year. Maybe you're doing it based on a conversation that you've had with them, and then they've said, hey, let's catch up here in a couple of weeks. You set a calendar invite to yourself and you contact them in a couple of weeks. Like, be proactive with it, because what's happening right now is that there are recruiters who are not necessarily following up with people. It's changed a little bit, and I think they're realizing the market is quite difficult for themselves too, so they may have a capacity issue, as an example. But you have to be proactive. So all of this stuff, there's probably other stuff as well, okay? So, networking events, this, that, blah, 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 whatever. But I'm talking about things you can do today, now. So all in all, this hidden job market is still dependent on you. There's no trick, there's no gimmick, there's none of that stuff. It's still dependent on you. So start off with a good CV. Make sure you're optimized on LinkedIn. Ensure your brand is on point. Reach out to your community or people you don't know and really work out and find out how they can help you, whether that is advice or referrals. And of course, whether you're using Sales Navigator or the free LinkedIn, their search filters and capability is pretty on point. So you can look for people within London who are program managers with certain level of experience. You can find that. So hopefully this has helped. I've tried to give you as much as possible here. Again, if you want to see more videos centered around portfolio careers, independent consulting, leadership, all of that kind of stuff there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.